Labyrinth City is a place of vast opportunities and thrilling adventures, and it is home to an adventurer named Nick. Nick's ultimate dream is to lead his party, Masters of War, to become an A-rank party. Unfortunately, fate takes an unexpected turn when he is unceremoniously expelled from the party and dumped by his girlfriend. When asked for an explanation, Argus, the party's leader, accuses him of not having the mindset of a true adventurer and tells him that he's not cut out for the job. Depressed and directionless, Nick wanders the city in the pouring rain, and he's approached by an idol named Agate. She pities him and gives him a ticket to her upcoming show. Nick goes, and from then on becomes an idol otaku, spending all his money on her merchandise. Nick's new lifestyle isn't free, so he returns to adventuring to make ends meet. But he's unsuccessful at finding a new party. He sits alone at a tavern, feeling despondent about his prospects. Moments later, 3 dejected individuals, a mage, a cleric, and a dragonian, all sit at his table, each looking as though their faith in humanity has been shattered. Strangers to each other, they all drink, and in unison slam their empty mugs and shout out their distrust in people. They then share their tales of betrayal that led them to their current predicaments. The mage, Tiana, was once a top student at a prestigious magic academy. Due to her exceptional magical abilities, she was subjected to malicious rumors by jealous classmates. Even her fiancé, Alex, believed the rumors and accused Tiana of bullying a fellow student named Lynn. Despite Tiana's protests of innocence, Alex ended their engagement, and Tiana left the academy. Desperate for money, Tiana tried to find work at various shops and other establishments, but all of them turned her down. In a moment of desperation, Tiana gambled all her money on a dragon race and won big. Filled with confidence, she continued to gamble until she lost everything. In need of money, she decided to become an adventurer, but her fierce appearance scared away potential party members, and here she is now. Zem, the cleric, used to be a respected member of the clergy in a city that worships the god of divine inspiration, Medlar. Known as Father Zem to the city's inhabitants, he provided them with healing services and had what he thought was a deep connection with them. One of the city's residents, a girl named Miral, had strong feelings for Zem. She would gather herbs for him, and he would compensate her effort with a coin. One day, she confesses her feelings for him, but her being so young, and him being a devout follower of the faith, Zem could not reciprocate her feelings. Feeling rejected, a frustrated Miral accused him of touching her inappropriately in exchange for money. Zem then lost his priesthood and his faith in humanity. Exiled from the city, he traveled aimlessly until he arrived at an inn. There, he encountered a woman, the innkeeper, who was clearly suffering back pain. Seeing that she needed help, Zem offered to heal her in exchange for a place to sleep with her. The next morning, the woman thanked Zem and suggested that he become an adventurer, giving him gear left behind by a previous patron of the inn. Curran, the Dragonian, is half in the bag, barely able to form a sentence, and we already know the story of Nick over here. The next morning, Nick finds himself in Tiana's bedroom, along with the other 3. As the 4 awkwardly begin to part ways, an epiphany cuts through the brain fog of Nick's hangover, and he suggests that they form a party and become official adventurers. Later, probably not the same day, unless they have amazing hangover remedies in Labyrinth City, the 4 adventurers officially form their party and name themselves the Survivors, based on their individual backstories. Nick, who seems to have assumed the role of the team leader, establishes the 3 laws that will guide their group. The first law: no party member should interfere with the hobbies of others. The second law: avoid overspending. And the third law is to always come back alive. The other party members have their concerns about his leadership. Zem argues that the way Nick proposes to handle the party's money could benefit him alone. Tiana also expresses her distrust, and Curran appears ready to just outright steal from the party. Despite their mutual distrust of each other, the survivors understand that they need to both doubt and rely on each other to function as a team. In other words, to be cautious. As G-ranked adventurers, the survivors set off on their first labyrinth adventure, an Aztec-ish temple-like structure that serves as an aqueduct. Since Nick has more experience than the others, he leads the party through the labyrinth and teaches them about the intricacies of adventuring. While exploring the labyrinth, the party encounters slimes, one of which embarrasses Tiana and causes her to slip and fall. Frustrated, Tiana clumsily fires an ice spell in Curran's direction by mistake. Curran quickly defends herself and blocks the icicle shards with her greatsword. Hurt and betrayed, she yells at Tiana, doubting her intentions. Tiana tries to defend herself, but only digs herself deeper. The two lose what little faith they had in each other, and Nick is left to mediate. After defeating the labyrinth boss, a giant slime, the party clean themselves up at a nearby waterfall. Nick points out the flaws in their first expedition together. Given the level of distrust within the party, Nick chooses to reveal his weaponry and abilities, and by extension his weaknesses, to build rapport with his team members. Although he has shown and told the party what he is capable of, he doesn't expect them to do the same immediately. Nick wants his team to decide what they want from the group and make their own choices along the way. Taking Nick's advice to heart, the party members reveal their strengths and weaknesses to each other, and Tiana formally apologizes to Curran, which helps towards clearing up the lingering distrust. After cleaning up, the survivors set out to clear a goblin encampment. By utilizing each of their skills, the party swiftly eliminates the goblins in their way. Tiana discovers a goblin with significant magical ability through her Detect Magic spell. Nick deduces that the goblin is actually an ogre, a dangerous enemy. Despite the risk, the survivors decide to take on the ogre for the bounty. Curran charges in, with the rest of the party backing her up by buffing her and clearing the surrounding mobs. With a decisive strike, Curran slices the ogre in half, scoring the party a massive bounty. Prying the horn off a dead goblin, Nick loses his footing, falls against Curran, and breaks her pendant. In the past, Curran gazes at a pendant at a little market stall and admires its quality and craftsmanship. The shopkeeper informs her that the pendant costs 20,000 dina, which she can't afford. She returns it to the shopkeeper, but he notices a small scratch on it, calls her clumsy, and demands that she buy it. In a stroke of luck, Curran's teammate Kallios comes to her rescue. He inspects the pendant and then instructs Curran to scratch it. Her nail/talon cuts a significant gash in the pendant, and that's the smallest she could make. The shopkeeper realizes that his con has been uncovered and, afraid of what could follow, lets the real, unblemished pendant go. The next morning, Curran and Kallios prepare to raid a labyrinth. Kallios advises her to leave her belongings behind, which she reluctantly does. Together with their party, they enter the labyrinth and defeat the monsters within it with ease. They reach the end of the labyrinth, where they find a pot containing a snake. Initiating the fight, Curran runs forward, drawing the snake's attention. Kallios orders her to just keep it occupied and they'll make the attack. As the fight progresses, the snake corners Curran and unleashes its glowy magic snake venom. She cries for help, but nobody comes to her aid and she collapses. When Kallios finally comes, he explains the poison's deadly effects and the weakened state of the snake after using it. He defeats the monster, collects its materials, and leaves Curran to die. Curran, not dead, but not great, painstakingly drags herself to the inn where she left her belongings and discovers that Kallios has pronounced her dead and stolen everything she owned, including the Dragon King's jewel. Angry and vengeful, she pulls out the pendant and almost smashes it, but stops herself at the last second. Determined to recover the jewel, Curran starts searching for Kallios everywhere. Eventually, she notices a man eating alone at a restaurant, Fif's, the solo eater. Curran admires Fif's strength as a solo adventurer, and seeing as he's made something of an art of eating good grub, she decides to follow him around and order everything he orders. Fif's picks up on her enthusiasm and starts monologuing aloud about the house specialties and places his orders in a loud enough voice for her to hear. But as was bound to happen, Curran runs out of money and has to return to adventuring, which is what led her to the tavern that fateful night, where she met the survivors. Nick, feeling guilty about the pendant, is at a trinket store, trying to find a pendant that looks like the one he's responsible for breaking. No luck. Agate, who happens to be passing by, points out to Nick that his actions are selfish. He only wants to release himself from guilt and isn't considering whether Curran even wants the pendant at all. Following Agate's advice, Nick finds Curran at a food stall where she's indulging in some happanyaki. She's in a great mood and offers him a taste. He decides it's a good time to bring up the pendant, but before he can speak, she assures him that she doesn't care about it. In fact, she's better off without it. Agate was right. Later, at the tavern, the party basks in the glory of their achievements, as other adventurers praise their progress. However, their good time is interrupted by the guild receptionist, who asks for a little chat. The guildmaster wants the survivors to retrieve a sacred blade for her, the Sword of Bonds. True to his distrusting nature, Nick gets, in writing, a commitment to pay a minimum fee regardless of the sword's condition, as well as all the information the guildmaster has on the labyrinth, the layout, the monsters, what areas have already been searched, etc. The following day, the party enters the labyrinth, fully equipped and ready to face any obstacles. The creatures they encounter seem to be artificial, with no signs of life in them. The labyrinth itself appears to be a modern office building, with discrete cameras tucked here and there that the party doesn't notice. They progress through the maze-like corridors and eventually arrive at level B12. Nick notices a green lamp in the corner of a dead end. Something's odd. The guildmaster's information says the light is red. He approaches it, and a hidden door opens. The party discovers a room filled with rows of display cases and a glowing red object in the middle. Nick is somehow sure that the glowing thing in the middle is what they're after. As they approach, the lights in the room snap on, and a voice booms, congratulating them on the achievement of discovering him, the sword, which seems broken, or at least incomplete. The sword assures them that it's perfectly intact. In fact, he's the Tirane Magic Armory's greatest product. The party is initially skeptical, but if it is the Sword of Bonds, well, that's what they're being paid to recover, so they take it. As they pick up the sword, a loud rumble signals the awakening of its guardian, an amorphous blob with a bright orange core in its head. Tiana is the first to take action, casting ice spikes, and Curran rushes in for a more direct assault. However, the blob blows back the ice spikes, effectively removing Curran from the equation. Zem gets to work healing her, and Nick steps up with the Sword of Bonds, but can't seem to do any lasting damage to the monster. He calls for the party to escape, but they're unable to break through the steel door. The Sword of Bonds instructs Nick to use it, concentrate on Curran, and shout the word Union. Nick follows its directions, but nothing happens. A catastrophic failure that even the sword doesn't understand. The monster knocks Nick across the room, through display cases and into a gaping hole in the ground that the monster arrived through, though its purpose is to guard that room. Who designed this? The casters urge Curran to go after Nick while they deal with the monster. Tiana freezes the monster in place, but it manages to break free and proceeds with its attack. In a desperate attempt, Zem reinforces Tiana's magic, allowing her to release a powerful array of spells, but it's still not enough to put the monster down. Curran finds Nick trapped beneath the debris at the bottom of the hole and starts digging him out, despite Nick's insistence to leave him and find a way to escape. Curran refuses to leave without ensuring everyone returns alive, as per the survivor's code. Nick apologizes for breaking Curran's pendant, but Curran again assures him that it doesn't matter and removes the last piece of debris. Nick stands up, the sword glows, and they try the union thing again. Meanwhile, at the top, the casters fight desperately for their lives, but Tiana's mana is all but drained. As they cling to each other in their final moments, a mysterious being swoops in to save them. It's a fusion of Curran and Nick, who dispatches the monster with ease. The fusion is brief, and Curran and Nick return to each being themselves, fatigued. though apparently not traumatized by the unimaginable weirdness of what that must have been like. They return to the guild with the sword in their possession and leave the inspection of the artifact to the guildmaster. She accepts the sword's condition and authenticity, but is suspicious of a boy lurking in the background. The boy introduces himself as Kizuna, which means bond in Japanese, causing the party to flinch. Fortunately, the guildmaster doesn't think much of it and wishes them luck. As the party departs, they welcome Kizuna, who is the Sword of Bonds, into their group and introduce him to the culture of the survivors, which he finds a little strange. While the rest of the party members leave to pursue their interests, Tiana invites Kizuna to the horse races. The survivors are all hanging out at the tavern, with Kizuna showing off his new equipment. Nick issues a series of items to the team: a cash box, a key, and an abacus, all magic in some way, of course. And then he reveals the amount of money they have. Not a lot. They're all ready to get back out there and make some more money. That night, and maybe most nights, they each reminisce about their past and the things that went wrong for them, changing their lives. Tiana especially, with how she had ruined another's career just because of an outrageous rumor at the academy. Though not her fault, she can't help but feel guilty for ending her mentor's career, even if he doesn't blame her. All of them want to return to a past they can't return to, when everything seemed right. All except Kizuna, of course, who had been sealed away for a very long time. The next day, they venture off into an icy labyrinth where they find an ogre chilling in the middle of it. Through telepathy, they wonder at the rebirth of the ogre they had already killed. Nick and Tiana explain that when the miasma grows thick, monsters are reborn and labyrinths are refilled, creating a never-ending cycle. With enough chit-chat, Kizuna bursts into action, rushing the ogre solo. He pulls out his sword and deflects each blow from the ogre with ease. Committing to the final blow, he creates a clone of himself and strikes the ogre from two sides. The ogre falls, and the survivors claim their prize. Though he pretty much just sat there and watched, Nick comments that he feels somewhat tired. Kizuna then explains that he used Nick's stamina and mana to fight. To that, Nick tells Kizuna that he doesn't plan on using Union again anytime soon. It's exhausting. Zem and Tiana go on to enjoy their hobbies, while Curran, Nick, and Kizuna go to get some food. Much to Nick's dismay, they arrive at the cafe where he got dumped by Claudine. Failing to inform them in time, Nick has no choice but to follow them in. As they eat, Nick hears a familiar voice. Right there at a booth, he spots Claudine with a boy having a date. The boy gives her a gift, clearly something elegant and expensive, and she shrills with excitement. Claudine then goes on with a sob story that concludes with her being in desperate need of money. The boy almost agrees to pay for her expenses, but Nick smoothly inserts himself into the conversation and calls Claudine out on her act. The boy is saved from being conned, and Claudine storms away, outplayed. Later, at the tavern, the survivors plan their next adventure, when suddenly a mug of beer, ale, mead, whatever it is they serve in Labyrinth City is poured on Nick's head. It's Claudine with one of her party members, part one of payback for ruining her con on the boy. Nick takes it with the calm and focus of a Buddhist monk, and casually insinuates that Claudine is also running a game on the Iron Tigers, her current party. Leon, the leader of the Iron Tigers, invites Nick to deal with this outside, and Nick prepares for a duel. But instead of fighting, Leon apologizes to Nick for Claudine and tries to talk Nick into joining forces. Leon thinks that Nick is masterfully running a con on his teammates. Nick laughs at this exposure of exactly what kind of person, or tiger thing, Leon is, and decides that the only thing for it is to punch Leon square in the jaw. A lot more easily than expected, Nick pins Leon down, but is knocked off him by Beck, the other member of the Iron Tigers, who is then swept off his feet by Curran. The commotion gets the attention of the guildmaster, Vilma, who puts a stop to their street brawl shenanigans, but points out that there are acceptable ways of settling disputes. Leon then challenges the survivors to a mathematics bare-knuckle battle.